So this is episode 16 of Cocktails and Compliance, live from the SAHMA Leadership Conference in Tampa, Florida. Teresa, I forgot you were going to announce this, but it's okay. I got you, girl. So, like I said earlier, we are recording this. If you have questions, you want to comment, you want to play along other than just sipping along, the microphone's there in the middle. So, I'm Janel Ganim.
I'm Ruth Fox.
And we're with Resman. And we have some special guests today. We are so excited. We have Sonja Horn from Dash Compliance. We have Ricardo Alicea from Wendover Housing Partners. It's his first SAHMA. And we got Dennis. So we love Dennis McWilliams from the Michaels organization. So thank you. None of them are shy. So I'm excited about that. You are not shy. So our cocktail of the day, thanks marketing team, is Mai Tais. I haven't had a sip yet. I understand they're strong. Yes. When they started bringing out stirrers, I was like, what's happening? Cheers, everyone. Cheers. Cheers.
What's the word, Larry? No more HOTMA. We're done. No. So the word for the day's drinking game is affordable. So every time somebody says affordable, got to take a drink.
Can I get another one then?
I did say it twice.
So Sonja said it again. I think I don't know if she's just playing or she's having a rough day or what. But anyway, all right. So last time, the word of the day was HOTMA. I know we've talked about HOTMA a little bit. I know Mary Ross is going to talk about it some more tomorrow. So what we wanted to say is we're really tired of talking about HOTMA and Tracks 203A. We're going to talk about it for a minute. So in case you haven't been playing along, it's supposed to go into effect January 1, 2025. I'll tell you the same thing we've been saying. We don't have any specs. We don't have any forms. We don't have any timelines. So, there's that.
We always play this game at the beginning of our podcast and we say, so what's the update? But we're usually just talking about Tracks 203A. This time, I think we can go ahead and say HOTMA too. So what's the update? There is no update.
Well, unless your tax credits. And then some states just decided, what the heck? Let's just do it.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. So, that shouldn't be a surprise. So when we were prepping, I think we decided on the tax credit side, it's been rolled out in Mississippi, Alabama, North Carolina, different in every state, not rolled out in Florida, you said. So who has tax credits in a state that has rolled out HOTMA? That's it? Yeah.
Who didn't hear the question because they've been sipping on their drink? How many of you are in a state that has rolled out HOTMA on your tax credit properties? Alabama,
we got a couple more hands that time. What state? Texas, North Carolina, Georgia, Colorado. Okay.
Well, I'm just going to ask the question or just make the comment. How difficult is it when you are layering your property with tax credits and HUD? And HUD is saying, throttle back, we're not moving forward on HOTMA, or you can't move forward yet. And your state agency is saying, yes, you must move forward on HOTMA, specifically on things that are going to impact the way that you calculate tenant income and rent. And now your TIC and your 5.9 cannot match, even though your software can do them independently. You can't because you can't transmit something like that. So how many of you feel completely lost and confused when we're dealing with this? Is it just me? Surely not. So what are you doing? What are you fellas doing on your properties?
I have all tax credit.
You have all. And all in Florida?
In Florida.
Shut up. He has easy.
Right, Florida's
not doing anything.
So
okay, well, you can leave now. He doesn't have any HUD affordable properties. You're welcome. So, Dennis, how are you handling it on your layer? Don't say you don't have any anymore.
Oh, I have layered properties in Florida. So Florida has distinctly taken the position that we're not going to do anything yet. So, yeah, we're a hurry up and wait and see, just like HUD. So we are waiting on HUD. Well, and there's that. I wasn't going to throw Florida completely under the bus. No, that needs to come from Maggie because Dennis is not saying that out loud.
I believe what we heard from the audience was Florida wasn't even going to do anything when they're supposed to. So,
Even where they're supposed to.
yeah.
Yes.
And they said, okay, Dennis, you should be on this panel because we need somebody who's the least informed person up here to make a fool of themselves. So that's why I'm here, by the way. So,
Well, we talked about in the PBCA roundtable yesterday, and we heard from our contract administrators, preferably do not implement any parts of HOTMA, just wait and do it all at one time. But when I'm dealing with a layered property, especially in a state that my state agency is telling me, yes, you must implement HOTMA, then I'm in a pickle. What am I supposed to do? Because now not only are my files completely different, everything is different. I'm doing one checking statement here and 6 here. I'm doing 401ks. I'm doing student calculation, financial aid this way. So it is a lot of confusion related to layering those properties and what we're hearing from our regulatory partners. It's just a lot of confusion. Yes, I said that.
So, Ricardo, I know one of the things that you can talk about that we've mentioned was just inconsistencies in general among housing agencies. And you told us a story about a lease-up property that you had.
I'm still dealing with it. That's how you remember. So we talked about inconsistencies between the agencies from county to county, from city to city. We're seeing it, and we're seeing no urgency from their part. So we have a lease-up that we're doing. It is 81 units, 61 project-based vouchers. Of course, all of them have to come from the housing agency, and they open their wait list, close the wait list, get 3,000, 5,000, whatever they got. So they decide to send 20 packets at a time. We're going to give you resident 2 weeks to complete their packet. Then we get it back, they approve it. Then they send it to us. And then we do the compliance part and they not approve. So out of those 20, we're lucky we get one. And then we go back to them and they send another 20 and wait 2 weeks. So it's been, very difficult. And we get on calls with them 3 times a week. We go over the whole list. We have to provide to them how many times we have called the person, have the follow-up. And the next week we get the list with the same people that we just talked about. So it's a lot of inconsistency, not a lot of urgency that we're seeing. And we opened this property in January and we're still not full. We're hoping the end of this month, we'll see.
I heard that. I'm not going to repeat it, but I heard it.
Is because you're waiting on referrals and they're only giving you bits and pieces at a time, and then you're processing, and that's chaos.
Yeah, what they're supposed to do is, if they have 3,000 people, send 300 packets at a time. And that way, we can get, out of the 300, we probably can get the 80 that we need.
And I'm going to ask a dumb question. Did you ask for more than 20 packets at a time?
Oh, yeah, we do. We actually, this is the second lease-up that we do with them. It's the second phase of the first phase. In the first phase, we only had 20, so it wasn't as bad. And I knew this was coming, so I had a call with them ahead of time and say, hey, this is what we need. This is how we need to proceed. And then like, yes. No. They have their process, and we need to follow the process. And we get the list. If the list is not corrupted, we cannot open it. Then, then we can start with those people. So it's hard.
Well, I don't feel so bad about you not having any HOTMA stuff to deal with then anymore, because you get that hotness. So this came up yesterday in the PBCA roundtable. Dennis and I decided we're just going to put a bow on everything we've heard up until today about MOR findings. So how do you deal with, what can sites be held to from a compliance perspective if there aren't any software updates? What are you guys seeing from an MOR perspective?
Well, you shouldn't be seeing anything right now. And if you are, you need to reach out to your PBCA, because we shouldn't be seeing any findings right now. It should just be a comment. 2025, theoretically, you should be held responsible for making sure that your EIV policies and procedures, your tenant selection plan have been updated. Not that you're using them, but that they are updated. And then I think what we learned from the PBCA roundtable yesterday was if you want to implement pieces of HOTMA that are not software dependent, that your file is well documented to explain what you're doing. So going back to that notice that HUD put out on exactly what your documentation needs to look like. And I would just strongly recommend that if that's what you're doing, there are parts of HOTMA that are fabulous and I want to start those today. So we're going to, I'm not going to wait around, but I'm going to make sure that that documentation is good, because I guarantee you will get a finding if you're not explaining what you're doing. It's not in your policy that that's what you're doing, or you're not doing it consistently. So if you're going to choose to implement pieces of HOTMA that you can without your software update, you need to do that on every single resident or applicant that you're processing.
And to follow up on that, I also heard them say, if you are implementing something, let your CA know that you are implementing those items. And again, make sure that your TSP is up to date with those specific items. And they will be looking at your TSP when they come to do the MORs on your site. So
I struggled with this yesterday when we were talking about it at the PBCA roundtable. Is I have a tenant selection plan that basically implements all of HOTMA that I'm not able to use. So am I supposed to do another one that says these are the parts of HOTMA that I am actually going to start now? Or do I have another document that says, while I'm not implementing this TSP completely, these are the portions that I'm now going to implement into my policy? So I think there's a little bit of a gray area there that you need to flesh out with your PBCA to make sure that you're not going to get a finding on your management review.
Yeah, I think we will see that they're going to want to see two different TSPs. And the question came up, do we have to wait till somebody says affordable to have a SIP? Because I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's what Dennis just whispered to me. He goes, do I have to wait? I said, no. I've not known him to wait.
Wasn't the TSP supposed to be final, like in June?
Yeah, so our TSP is supposed to, May 31st is supposed to have all of our HOTMA options spelled out, but we're not allowed to actually use that until our software is updated. So we have a document that's, 75 pages long that we can't actually use. I think our position is if you are going to start doing parts of HOTMA, you need either a revision to that's current now that says we're not doing this, but we are doing that, something to that effect.
So also in the roundtable yesterday, it came up about streamlining in MORs. And I know that came up in our prep call as well. So one of the things, Sonja, you and I were talking about this, about how, it takes much longer because you're having to go back. The findings are much more significant. So you want to elaborate on that?
I do. And I think this is something that I don't think all of us are fully aware of yet, and how much it's going to impact you personally and your properties financially. Because if they are coming to do a management review and for streamlining purposes, you did superior and they're coming in 3 years, that does not mean they are just looking at this year. It means they are going back to the last time they were at your property and they are looking at all of the information from that point up until now. Which means that, number one, let's say they're checking 10 files. Last year or 3 years ago, they checked the move-in and the current. That's 2 5/9s. Now they're going to be doing 6 of those. So what was normally taking, 8 to 10 hours is going to be taking at least twice as long. Not to mention the fact that if you have a finding that has a financial impact, as an error in your total tenant payment or your assistance payment, you're going to go back 3 years on your voucher to make those corrections. So a $10 error over 36 months is now going to be much more impactful than it used to be. And normally a $10 error would be like, oh, it's fine, no big deal. We'll write it off. But now we're going to end up with adjustments on our voucher that are so significant. And I don't think that we have really processed the impact that that's going to have on our sites, on the daily, when they come to do the review, how long it's going to take, but also the amount of corrections that we are going to have to process and how much paperwork we're going to have to submit. I mean, it's going to intensify that MOR significantly, in my opinion.
Hey guys, there's a mic out here in the audience. So if y'all have any feedback or comments or questions, please feel free to hop up and talk on the mic. We want to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm with Fidel. I'm the compliance manager. And I wanted to speak on that because we're really concerned about the staffing issue when we go out and do MORs because they've been kind of unclear because we're supposed to review some move-ins and some ARs. So we're trying to say, can we, or maybe not say, can we do new move-ins, more new move-ins? Because we don't want to put that burden on ourselves or you. So kind of our philosophy might be we always have done some new move-ins to not put so much time because it's never been a problem before. So they've not said you have to transition all of the review files into 3 years back. So if we continue what we've always done and focus some on new move-ins, then there's no 3 years to go back. So we're hoping that will alleviate some of the issues with time.
That's fabulous. That's fine. I hope all the PBCAs take that position.
And I believe we also mentioned during that session that it was up to 3 years, correct? Okay. So, HUD's language is a little bit confusing, both for the inspectors as well as for the owner agents, because we don't know when they come out if they're going to inspect all the way up to that 3-year mark, or if they're going to do 1 certification or 2 certifications, or what it might be. So it becomes a little bit of a challenge, and each one of the PBCAs may do something different. So it's based on their interpretation of HUD's rules.
Right. And throwing also a wrench into that is going to be the implementation of HOTMA, where you have resident files that are on a new lease that have all of HOTMA, and you have resident files that are on an old lease that are not HOTMA. Your contract administrator is going to have to know your policy on all of the options that you've chosen so that when they're reviewing their file, right now it's fairly easy to review, 10 files because all the rules are the same for all of us. Now we're going to say to our contract administrator, you're coming into my property and all the rules are different from the one you just were at yesterday. And you got to forget all of that and do it my way. And that is going to involve extra time. I mean, you, as a human being, it's just going to take you more time to review those files.
So I think the one thing that I heard yesterday that literally made me come up off my chair was reviewing electronic files versus printed copies of files. I see lots of heads nodding. This one's a little near and dear for me. And Ricardo, you mentioned too that Florida will not accept an electronic signature on a tip.
They will?
They will now.
Yes, I was gonna say no, so yeah, I guess the rule is not. But I have heard companies that are doing it. They're just doing it and they're submitting it. If they get written up, they fight it. They fight it because HUD accepts electronic signatures. Why doesn't Florida Housing do it? So it is nothing in writing. We have used electronic signatures for our taxes forever. So what's the big deal? I asked them and they were like, I said, you're going to write me up? And they were like, yeah, because I was telling them, I know companies that are doing it. And they were like, it's like they didn't want to say it. They didn't want to get themselves in trouble. They were like, yeah.
We need to describe for the podcast viewers or the listeners what that face was.
Yeah. Shoulder rock.
It was a little bit of a shrug. It was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
You could see that, right?
I felt it. So I'm kind of curious. How many of you have moved to electronic files? How many of you are moving to electronic files?
Oh, come on, guys.
Yeah, if you're not moving to it, why? Why aren't you?
So.
Oh, dang. Shots fired from the front row. TJ, our sales rep in the back, just stood up. That got him out of his chair.
So I'm going through the trifecta.
Huh?
I'm going through the trifecta myself because I am moving software. I am bringing compliance in-house plus HOTMA. So my compliance, it's going crazy. And the reason we want to move in-house is because the compliance that we used to have, they were very experienced, I want to say. I don't want to say old school, but experienced. And they wanted every print paper and every file in hand. And so that's why we're bringing it in-house. So I'm going through all the changes at the same time. And it's hard. It's difficult. It's hard to get people to, see, and okay, this is the way we're going. they want to hold on to the old ways. It's hard.
But you're just ripping the Band-Aid off. Like, we're
We
just
are.
going to do it.
We are.
We
We're
do it
just going to
all
do
once.
it. We are going to do it. Yes.
And I believe using the technology that we have, first of all, in 10 years, we're going to look back and say, why didn't we do this sooner, right? HUD went through this whole paperless, and I'm sorry, those were air quotes in case you couldn't see them, paperless phase that they went through, right? Where they scanned everything and they're like, we don't want paper anymore. You know how affordable it would be if we didn't have to spend money on paper and toner and printing and all the wasted time that you have to file all of that into a folder, and then that folder gets too big, and right, it's excess time, right? So it really makes sense if we start looking forward. This is where we're going, right? This is where we're going already. So why don't we take the step and move in that direction? And over COVID, we've learned that they can do monitoring remotely. We know that they can do monitoring remotely because they did it during COVID, right? So of course, it makes sense for us to step up and make sure that we are on the cusp and we're moving forward. And we are asking those software vendors who aren't prepared to get prepared, because that's where they need to be, right? And maybe there are some software vendors that are prepared. I could imagine that they are. So
Some software vendor somewhere
I'm sure
that
there are
must
some
be
software
prepared.
vendors that are prepared
Don't know
for
who
this
that might be.
transition.
Well, I want to say you also have to have the buy-in of your PBCA on your HUD properties, because I heard yesterday saying, and one admitted it, but I think there's maybe others that are.
Note for recording, Dennis almost spit out his drink.
Was that my fault?
Well, because when you got to the admissions.
Yeah.
Why
If
is
you-
your drink empty, Rue? Dang.
Oh,
Rue's over here quietly, like, that's why she has two.
she's drinking my drink now. No. So if you got to talk to your PBCA, because if you're doing your electronic files and then they're asking you to print them before they come to do a management review, that completely defeats the purpose of having an electronic file. So, we all need to get onto the same page, and then we need to help our PBCAs get onto the same page and have a software that we can say, here's access to everything in an ordered fashion. Everything looks the same. It's all, consistent. Here's how you review it. Maybe if we all did it in the same way, it would be helpful for them to get on board.
Maybe, and I do understand the whole, I can't just take a bunch of scanned documents and try to make sense of it. But if you put it in the same order that you would have your paper file, if you have a cover sheet, make it easy for yourselves, make it easy for whoever's doing the review. That would certainly help. You can't just scan a bunch of stuff and go, here's 2,000 documents. Good luck finding that verification letter. Right?
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I asked them to at the same time. And that's what they say they want. They want, some logical order. They also don't want, 20 different little files that they have to click, open. So as easy as you can make it, they're okay with it. Yes.
Yeah. I want to talk to
And two computers.
And what?
And two computers. That's what they asked. So they could see one and they could write in the other one. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
If that's what it takes, you can have two monitors. I'll send monitors. So I wanted to hit on something else that you mentioned, because you said you have a lot of things going on at once. And one of the things that I know we hear from a lot of our clients, and Ricardo, you mentioned it too, is centralization.
Yes.
And what things are being centralized versus not. So I'm going to let you start with what you're centralizing, and then I'm curious to hear what the audience is doing.
Well, right now I'm not centralizing anything.
But you think about it.
Yes. Because of all the transition that I have going on right now. But my goal is probably within, I did a 1, 3, 5 year plan for our company. And on my 3-year, I do have it. I definitely want to bring, the renewal process in-house, centralize it, because I think that will bring a lot of consistency, make sure that all the notices are sent at the same time, all the forms are dotted. And I think it will take away from the on-site staff, continuing to follow up on those residents. And I want them to do what they're supposed to be doing, provide services, whatever, help the residents, do all that. Collections, I think also, it's something that definitely bring in centralized, take the emotion out of the on-site teams. All the 3 days will go on the same day. Somebody will talk to this resident and evictions will be filed at the same time. Of course, there's caveats to that. But I think it will standardize more the process. So I think those are 2 that I have on my 3-year plan. we centralize.
Yep. Is anybody in the audience centralizing any of their processes? Oh, I knew it. I knew we would get Larry Sisson up here at some point. I didn't even get to inspire yet, and Larry got out of his chair. I'm so excited.
I promised them yesterday I would not speak today. But, I appreciate SAHMA, or the Southeastern Affordable Housing Management Association, having us here today.
Thank you.
So, yeah, and I'm glad that I'm able to be the chair of NAMA, which is the National Affordable Housing Managers Association. Did y'all hear that? I said affordable twice. So, no, so I think the question of centralization of processes, I think is really interesting to me, because historically we have tried to push a lot of the work away from our central office to the site that can do that. One of the things that I have a real difficult time with is EIV, because EIV is one of the largest MOR findings right now, and we train our staffs, but the only person that can you either do EIV or you've missed it. You can't go back and do EIV. And so I'm just interested in how at least the panel and maybe other people in the audience monitor whether or not your sites are in fact running their EIV reports. That's a difficult thing for us to keep up with in the affordable industry. So,
Hello, affordable people.
Have y'all all Larry?
My name's Rachel. I own Align Compliance Solutions. And just speaking on digital EIB, I have done that. And because to take more work off of the site teams, it's important to, like we're talking about, digitize and centralize as much as you can. And so digitizing your EIV binders, huge, because then you can monitor them at a corporate level in real time. So if you need help with that, let me know and I can show you. But also I think too, it's so frustrating when I hear that people are kind of keeping the industry back from moving forward with digitization, and we got to lift each other up. We got to move forward with this, and our partners, which are PBCAs and our state agencies, need to help us in that effort to modernize our housing. So thank you.
I agree with that 100%. And I do a lot of digital EIV and reviewing when we're looking where Larry is. And a lot of it can be done from a corporate standpoint and then just trickle down to the sites, the questions that need to be answered. And I find often what I don't see documented correctly on EIV reports can easily be found in resident files, right? If people are entering information correctly in their software, when people start and stop employment, I don't even need to talk to a human being. I can get on the software. I can look up that resident file. I can see what's going on, especially if it's digitized. I can just go browse what actual documents are there and completely remove that from the site. I mean, we were talking about at the AI panel, the idea of AI is to make our lives easier so that we have the brain space to do things that a computer can't do. Interact with residents, making sure that, dealing with problems on our properties, doing inspections, doing all those other things that a computer can't do. So whatever we can pass off to that or centralize, I think we need to I agree, we all need to be working towards that together. There's no reason why we shouldn't.
One of the things that you can use technology for too is to help with fraud detection. And that's the other thing that I keep hearing a lot about recently. How many of you are having issues with applicant fraud? Applicant fraud. Ma'am, I'm getting you another cocktail. You have raised your hands for so many things. There's extras in the back. You get an extra. Yes, just help yourself.
So, affordable peeps, how's it going? Anybody need a refill? Anybody? On the EIV thing, we did bring ours in to centralization. We run all the EIV reports and we upload them as attachments for the sites. And then we do a spot check. We have them send us their discrepancy logs monthly. They have a due date, and then we just kind of funnel through them and, see, if they're working them and if they're not, it's pretty clear. And that's been very helpful because, like you said, what the sites are supposed to do is deal with the residents, and the residents that we're dealing with nowadays are completely different than the residents that we dealt with 20 years ago, So the people on site need as much time as they can get to deal with those people. So that was my EIV question. And you asked another one, and I said yes. Oh, fraud. Oh, gosh, fraud. Stacy can attest
What
to
kind
this.
of fraud, though? Is it
Paycheck fraud.
Is it?
We have a lot of people that are scared. It was actually the opposite that I thought it was going to be. We had a lease up that we sent the files to Karen Graham for review, and they caught some fake pay stubs. And it ended up being people that weren't trying to get under the income limit, which is what I think we all fear. It was people that were scared that we would make them verify their income in such a way that they wouldn't be able to, like they were self-employed and hadn't filed taxes, and they heard the rumor that they wouldn't qualify for tax credit if they didn't file taxes, which isn't necessarily true. That might be in your qualifying criteria for your particular property, but there's no tax credit rule that says you have to file a tax return. So it was people trying to cover up because they wanted to either meet the minimum threshold but not trying to be under the income limit. So that's where, so most of the stuff was able to be corrected because it was fraud, but it was fraud because they were trying to substantiate a self-paid job or a job where they were being paid under the table. So, and I've had instances where the employer faked the pay stubs, that they were sent to me directly from the employer. And they were under the impression that they would get in trouble because they were paying these people under the table. So they created the fake pay stubs.
Like, that's better. Like, that is better. To fake a check stub instead of pay you under the table.
I just want to throw something out there, and I'm pretty sure it's widely available in the market, but there is fraud detection software out there that's available, and it will verify both pay stubs and identities. So if you're not talking to your software provider about it, all different systems have different manners of verification.
What did you say?
I said different systems have different ways to verify, but it's out there and it's catching it. So if you're not using it, you should look into it.
Yeah, we started using it, and it detects if it's been altered. Yes, the document. Yeah,
Just that
correct. And it does bank statements, does pay stubs and things like that.
how much are you finding that's been altered?
Oh, some yes. Oh yeah.
Well, and Ricardo, you tell me too, it's not even just it moving, right? You said sometimes it's that first annual recertification.
Yeah, we have some properties that we are, some people got in that we're supposed to get in at the beginning. So we're trying to, at recertification, requalify them again. And that's what we're catching them.
And I know we were talking about, Sonia, you mentioned this too, like when you guys are seeing fraud that you're evicting them for fraud, correct?
Absolutely. Right. I'm not waiting. I'm not delaying. As soon as I identify it, if it's clear, then they're gone. That's a lease violation. And I'm like, on a Section 8, you don't really have the option to non-renew. You have to terminate for cause anyway. So I'm not going to delay at any point. I'm definitely moving forward.
I mean, I'm actually in groups on social media about the industry, and there are people out there that are selling identities or pay verifications for $500, and people are buying them. They are buying them left and right. So it's happening out there. It's everywhere.
Because there's no affordable housing.
Oh. What was your question? I do see a couple of extras in the back. Yes, I noticed you made a big face and you were out of your drink, and I felt bad for you. Yeah. So let's talk about evictions. How's that going for you guys? Are you able to actually successfully evict? And if so, is it particular states? Are you having trouble in particular states? Ricardo, I'm looking at you because you talked about a particular state where you were having trouble, and it wasn't Florida.
No. All right. So I do have a property in Georgia. One that I don't want to have. Sorry.
It's a lovely state, but
Sorry, Georgia. It's the only property we have. And yeah, no, after COVID, of course, everybody was struggling. People from Georgia here, Atlanta. Yeah, so the courts were backed up in Georgia. And so if you send somebody to eviction, and in Georgia, if they answer the court, that automatically you have to go to mediation. In Florida, it's not like that. And Georgia residents know that. They know that. So they all answer. And so the courts was so packed up that it was taking 4, 5, 6 months to get a mediation date. And then once you got the mediation date, there were some of the judges were making their own rules. Some of them were like, "Oh, just go ahead and pay $500, and then we'll see you next month." And then if you got the judgment, then the sheriff was backed up too, and the sheriff will take 5 or 6 months. I have residents that were there for 18 months, and I could not do anything about it. There was some new legislation earlier this year in Georgia. It's getting better, but there's still backed up over there. There's still some trouble. So yeah, it's been hard. It's been very hard. In Florida, it's much easier to evict than over there. I mean, and I don't think it's not hard. It's just that the courts are backed up.
In my experience in Florida, I think it's a district by district situation, because some of the smaller districts, I can get an eviction a lot quicker. The courts aren't quite as backed up. Some of the larger ones might be a little more lenient towards the residents, and so they may give the resident a little more time or come up with some sort of stipulation. So I agree, we haven't seen as many issues in the state of Florida getting evictions, but there could be a little bit more delay depending on the jurisdiction.
Except the 30-day notice. That's a pain, yes.
And you said in some states you have to have an attorney to file an eviction, correct?
In Alabama,
Yes, Alabama.
if you're an LLC in Alabama, you have to have an attorney to file.
Yeah, we always use an attorney.
I mean, that's not affordable. What? Yeah.
No, I think I would want an attorney. I don't want my staff to, now be attorneys, and I don't want them to go through that. Yes.
Okay. Anybody out here having problems with evictions? I see heads nodding. Anybody want to talk about it? No. Are you getting them through in some states? Yeah. She's in Atlanta. Got it. I'm repeating, not because I can't hear you, but for the recording. So judges are doing whatever they want. Anybody getting those through, no problem, all happy with your yes? You're nodding your head yes. Particular state?
In Tennessee, we used to have a problem, but last eviction we had, the guy went in there, the judge said, "You did what they said they did." He said, "You did." And she started to say, "Well, I got," and she said, "I didn't ask you that." I said, "If you did what they said you did." She said, "Yes," and she said,
You need to go buy property in Tennessee, Ricardo.
Yeah.
Ricardo's suddenly very interested in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I think the residents are getting very savvy on the eviction process, and they know what they need to do, and they know what they need to say, and they know how to pull the heartstrings. They're getting very, very savvy.
Okay, so speaking of residents being savvy, I'm looking at my notes because we talked about this somewhere. Oh, we were talking about the Renter's Bill of Rights, and we were talking about oversight for renter complaints. You guys getting any renter complaints? Yeah. You spending more time on those than you previously had? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that came up yesterday with the PBCA roundtable, is how many more complaints that your PBCA is getting. And a lot of that, we feel like, is related to this whole trickle-down idea of this Renter's Bill of Rights. You're not allowed to ask them questions. You're not allowed, all these things that as a landlord, we're all of a sudden obligated to do or to provide to our residents, and them going and making more complaints. But those complaints going a lot of the times to HUD and not to your PBCA, because that's where those ideas are generated. And so your PBCA is getting oversight from HUD, which is a lot more intense than just them responding to a resident. So now you've got a whole nother layer of bureaucracy involved in responding to a complaint than you had likely a few years ago.
So to clarify, because I was about to ask, when you said that it's coming from HUD, are the renters going to HUD or are they going straight to the PBCA?
They're going straight to HUD.
Okay.
Right.
That makes a whole lot more sense. I was like, how are they finding out?
No, yeah, they're going straight to HUD, and then HUD is funneling the complaint down to the PBCA, and then the PBCA is not only having to get our response, they're having to give HUD what they want. Or a lot of my residents are just going to their congressman, to be honest with you, and you're getting a congressional complaint, and my God, that's even more intense in a response.
I'd have to say that we're seeing more congressional senators, congressmen involved, going right to that source. Hotlines before we even hear about those. This is Jeff, by the way, NHC. Good to see everyone. So that's what we're dealing with. It's not so much it's HUD, but it's also at a higher level. It's in DC. It's mayors in the city of Atlanta. There are a lot of things. So we're having to track resident concerns on various properties on a weekly basis. It's really heightened. There's a focus on, and as you mentioned earlier, the voice of the resident is getting stronger in the industry. Not that it's necessarily a bad thing, but it is getting stronger, and we're doing a lot more work in terms of making sure that we address those concerns on a much more regular, fervent basis, as stated. By the way, I've heard PBCA probably more than affordable in this session. So it's a toss-up between PBCA and affordable, and which one is used more often. Anyway.
And I also, we all know that it is an election year, of course. And because of that, I think the residents are going to their commissioners, to their senators, and of course the senator, because they want to get reelected, they're going to make it a big deal. So it's getting worse. This year is going to be until election day. Thank God election here in Florida is today. So a lot of the local ones are going to be gone. But on the federal side, we're going to hear it all the way until November, especially when they make a complaint to them.
So Larry Sisson again. I'm not going to say affordable because I've said affordable too many times. So no, one of the issues that we are facing, we have a grievance policy that shows a resident and is published, shows the track you're supposed to take to make complaints. Our problem is that resident skips through the grievance policy and goes directly to our regulators, and the regulators jump on it. And so what is the other resident going to do when they hear, we didn't have to tell the manager, we didn't have to tell the regional, we go straight to the source. That's a problem. And then the other problem is if you manage a lot of apartments and you know a resident's name, that is a problem, okay? And so the PBCAs know the resident's name. I know the resident's name. Everyone in my company knows the resident's name. At some point, these complaints are ridiculous and is taking everybody's time away. So I wish at some level there was a pushback from the ants, from either HUD or PBCA that says the first thing, did you follow the grievance policy? That should be the first thing. Have you talked to them? Have you, gone through the steps that we have? And then if there is a habitual complainer, there's got to be some realistic expectations about that because you can't answer the same complaint every week. So,
Larry, it sounds like that renter's name needs to be the drinking game for your company.
Exactly. Oh, no, it is.
Larry, don't go away. So my question for everybody is, are you guys finding when you're hearing complaints like this from the Congress people or the regulators or whatever, are they leaning one way or the other? Does it feel like they're doing their diligence on, did you really try to solve their problem? Are you working with them? Do you find they're just automatically taking the renter's side today because it?
Yes. So I'll speak to that because like Ricardo said, even in the tax credit world, if you step back up, we're not talking the affordable industry is not just the HUD side, right? It's tax credit as well, right? And so the local legislators are the ones who give us those tax credits. So who do our residents go to? They go to those commissioners. And then the commissioner says, well, I signed off on you getting a bond for your tax credit property. Why are you treating your residents like this, right? So they come at us. They will jump right down. And then you're like, but wait a minute, you've only heard half the story. Here's the rest of the story. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that. Well, of course you don't know that. So it really is forming those relationships with those local legislators who have signed off on those tax bonds so that you can build those properties that are not expensive. Yeah, not expensive. Or affordable. Okay. So if these residents, we are serving a purpose, right? We are serving these residents who can't afford to live in other places, right? So the local legislators are just as passionate as we are about what we're doing, but then they get elected by those people that they're housing as well, right? So they don't elect us, but they elect the people that they go to. So yes, those legislators do come at you and they want to know and they want answers.
And I think also, especially in cities that are smaller cities, and, when they give you the tax credits, they feel like they're, own or they're part of the property or the process of, they deserve all the answers. So it's I see it more in those small cities. I have one in Palm Beach County that, we got the income increases in April. So the rents went up. We just had the UAs redone and they went down. So of course now rent is going to go up, and they call the city. So I have a meeting tomorrow with the board to explain to them why twice in 1 year the rents went up, and they're like, and again it's because it's election year, so they are all on about it.
Come on, Chris.
Yes.
So, Chris Cook, National Affordable Housing Management Association.
By the way, Chris,
We're all dry, right? At this point?
yeah. By the way, Dennis just said, I'm talking too much. I don't get to drink. So I whispered affordable in his ear 3 times.
So, from the political perspective, unfortunately, campaigns matter, as Ricardo was pointing out. The really first big public embarrassment with affordable housing was in Florida with Senator Marco Rubio, and I believe it was the first time he was running for president. And there was a bad situation with housing in Jacksonville, and it made the news in the state. And because he was running for president, it made the news everywhere, because you know how there's just so many reporters running around reporting things. And so that became a public perception. And then he introduced legislation about inspections and basing things on tenant surveys, which is coming with Inspire. So unfortunately, in the affordable industry, sometimes you have, just like any industries, there's like the 90-10 rule, 80-20 rule. There are folks who maybe don't do it as run their properties as well. They're not here in this room. They're not in SAHMA. They're not in NAMA, the Southeastern Affordable Housing Management Association, the national. But, it's today's reality that with 24/7 news cycles, and there's a campaign election for everything every year, right? I mean, we're going to finish this one and they're going to be campaigning for the next president, and it's going to be 2025. Unfortunately, all the good actors are tainted by the few exceptions. And, I don't have any good news about it, but it's just the reality of it. And so you guys are dealing with forces beyond anything you can control on a daily basis. So you should drink to that.
I thought that.
You put a cherry right on that. We appreciate that. Thanks, Chris.
I was going to say, I don't even know what to say after that.
Well, let me just say, though, given all of that and the fact that we're dealing with HOTMA, we're dealing with MORs, we're dealing with all of these other things, and we're still doing it, right? I mean, I think that's pretty impressive that we still show up every day. We still do our job. So that's good. We're not running away.
No, we're not running away. So we are just about at time. I'm going to ask you guys any parting thoughts, anything else you want to share before they, head down to the bar for the happy hour. Anything else you guys want to talk about or ask our panel? You guys are good. Yeah, she just said I need another drink. So they're like, there's no questions. We're out of drinks.
Does anybody know an affordable place to grab a drink?
Well, and on that note, we appreciate you being here. You can connect with any of us on LinkedIn. If you like the podcast, you can find it on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Appreciate you guys being here.
And if you like us, tell us somebody to invite us back.
We'll bring more cocktails.